Hi everybody, lovely to see you all here. I feel like it's a bit of a Marseille reunion because I think half the room was in France last week for the WAN IFRA Congress, so it's lovely to see you all here again. Okay, that's not, is that right? Okay, fine. All right, I didn't know if it needed to be on the big screen as well. So one of the things, we're going to be talking a little bit today about the post-traffic era. I mean, everybody wants to talk about traffic and search. It's on everybody's mind at the moment, so I thought it might be nice to just do a little walk through some of the things that we are seeing in the industry, some of the tactics that people are using to think about how to build beyond this era. My name is Lisa MacLeod. I'm a director and also head of news at FT Strategies. I'll do a quick little walkthrough on that. Perhaps I should start by saying, actually, we very, very good partners with ARC, and we do a lot of work with them in the industry, which is great. So they're part of our technology partner ecosystem, and wonderful team to work with. So I'm very, very grateful to be asked to be with you today. Thank you so much. I'll mention a partnership that we've done in particular in the last couple of weeks, which is the Future Newsrooms report, which we released in Marseille last week. And people have really loved it, really enjoyed it. And I've got one or two slides that reference that report as well. So if you haven't seen it, I'm going to just do a shameless punt for it at the moment and say, please go and have a look. It tells us some very interesting things. The question we asked on that report was, are newsrooms ready for this new future? The answer, it won't surprise you, is no. So, and then we have 57 pages explaining how we got to that conclusion, and lots of ideas about how that might be improved in the future. So, a little bit about FT Strategies. We help publishers transform their strategy and operations. I mean, I like to wrap it up to say we try and help media companies build better businesses at the end of the day. Many of you in the room have worked with us before, which is fantastic, and it's lovely to see some of you again. We're a specialist media consultancy. We work within the FT group, and we draw very heavily on the experience of the FT and also many of our other clients. We've now worked with more than 1,000 media clients globally. We draw very heavily on their experience as well to help us actually formulate better solutions for the people that we work with. So 4 pillars we look at: business strategy, commercial growth, operational transformation, and the newsroom report I mentioned falls very squarely into that area of interest. And then, of course, AI, technology, and data. Hi, Jess. I've just seen my colleague here, so that's nice to see you. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about the AI effects today as well. So this is less sort of a broad state of the industry and more of a really quite focused piece of state of the industry, which is about the traffic that publishers used to rely on is generally becoming less stable. You know, we've seen so many changes to this ecosystem. As usual, I always think about the threats that we're facing in the industry. There's always something that's coming down the road, and at the moment, the thing that we are very preoccupied with is search. So sorry, you can't really read the bottom of that slide, but basically, what we're looking at is fewer direct visits. We're being disintermediated, and the way that is happening is through search, and that is also putting a pressure on subscriber value in the long run. So, we think about 31.6% of publisher revenue is exposed to disruption, and I've got some stats that are a little bit more alarming than that, although it's disputed as to just how alarming it is. The main thing that we talk about, yes, that's really helpful, whoever's made those slides a little bit bigger, because I can actually read them now, so thank you for that. Answer engines, as we call them, are turning traditional discovery into fewer publisher visits, and that click-through is being replaced with AI-generated responses. So, I mean, anybody who's been on the internet will understand this. You go on, you ask a question, the AI will generate an answer for you within Google search or in other websites, and that's the end of the session. That's pretty much where it ends. So what's not happening at the moment is that click-through, where we used to be getting quite a lot of traffic from that. And what that is changing for publishers is a lack of visibility, very much a weaker audience understanding as well, and therefore fewer conversion moments. And I mean, for most of us, we're in the subscription business, so that conversion moments piece is really very important. Lots of debate about whether or not the 69% or thereabouts figure is accurate, and I think publishers have reported lots of variations on a theme around this. Exactly how much traffic is being lost, it's very difficult to say, but somewhere in the region of that. I mean, I have also heard that a lot of publishers that signed up with Cloudflare were kind of caught short by this, because not really anticipating how much bot traffic they originally had as well. So, you know, signing up to the bot blockers has actually also caused a very big dip in traffic. So I think all in all, there's going to be a rebalancing of what we consider to be normal as far as traffic goes, and that's, you know, partly anecdotal and partly observed. And then there are quite a lot of cautionary tales about being over-reliant on platform traffic. I mean, I remember a time when we were all looking up to the BuzzFeeds of the world to say, oh my God, I wish we had this business, you know, because it's so viral and funky and fabulous and they're making so much money and everything else. But it didn't really last. And a lot of the really big pure play traffic publishers have gone to the wall or are battling as a result. And I suspect, I was just having a chat with somebody, that I think that there is going to be a lot more consolidation in the industry, because loads of publishers are still primarily reliant on advertising and traffic as being their primary source of revenue. So, you know, what is very heartening, and I think we all saw this last week at Marseille, people are partnering, they're getting together, they're thinking about how to work together, which is new for this industry. It's never really happened to such a degree before, and I think that that's a wonderful thing, and I hope at least that might engender more partnerships in the industry. You know, there are lots of important things about search, as we know. I mean, one of them is obviously the discovery of news. We think about 45% of people use search to discover news. It's a stumble across moment where you find things when you're searching, and you actually find new sources and new sources of information. Often that's your own products that get discovered in that way. So when they say discovery, they really do mean discovery. And then also trust and verification. And, you know, there's a stat there that 26% of people will actually go to traditional news outlets or journalists in the results to try and find something trustworthy. And I think that is a very big opportunity. I mean, we've heard this a lot for professional publishers. I'm going to use the term professional publishers, publishers with fact-checking teams, legal teams, you know, revise sub-editors, copy editors, news editors, etc., etc. The people who do all the work of verifying and checking that information. It's been stated many times, but I do feel that this is going to be a very big opportunity for those type of publishers in this industry, because people know where to go when they're actually looking for verification. So I think there's definitely going to be there could be some advantage to us there. So the risks, I mean, of AI disruption is disintermediation, as we said, and the platform reliance, that is, you know, being reliant on platforms for traffic is being severely disrupted. But there are also some opportunities, and one of those is in terms of engagement and product development. There are a couple of stats from the FT at the bottom there. The FT is a company that has focused extremely heavily on collection of first-party data over the years. Not only with new browsers or new customers, but also retrospectively with customers that we've had for a very long time, to go back and ask for more information on them, in the interests of actually being able to build better products, being able to focus on personalization. But certainly for us as a business, it's been incredibly valuable to have all of that first-party data and a really largely logged in user base. The reason is because it helps with subscriptions. As you can see there, even registered users we've found are about 7.5–8% more likely to subscribe in future. So having a registered database is really important. And really, I remember our new CEO, John Slade, talking about this some time ago. I don't want to say it's an unintended consequence exactly, but the FT has certainly over the years focused very much on unmasking users, having everybody registered, having everybody logged in, having everybody in an account, and focusing on subscriptions has had an unintended consequence of really fueling our advertising business as well. because the more we work with logged in users and subscribed users and people that we have a lot of data on, the more that is generating a fortuitous flywheel in terms of advertising. So you can see there that we generally see about a 45% increase in CPMs where we have demographic data. In some cases, actually, that's significantly higher. So there's a definite uplift in terms of CPMs and advertising revenue based on the first-party data collection as well. So these high-value audience relationships, as I said, become more valuable as you move users from unknown to becoming loyal customers. And that value, which I said last week, we should have, kind of conference bingo, that value from volume to value is where it really lies. So really going for loyal customers, getting away from anonymous audiences, getting away from very quick click in and out fly-by audiences, trying to bed people down and keep them with you for longer is really the playbook that I'm talking about today. And trying to maybe suggest ways to do it rather than just saying this is what should be done, but rather these are some of the ways that you can actually do this. I popped this in actually, which is a slide from the newsroom report, the future newsroom study that we've just done. We've moved sort of through these eras, as I said, that mass market era of sort of really broad distribution, search intent, the platform area is being surfaced, and we feel like we're moving into what we're going to call the community era now, which is really, really focusing, not paying lip service to putting audiences first, but really, really thinking about audiences and honing in very tightly on what it is that they want, what they need, how they behave, and how do you service those, because these are your customers at the end of the day. So instead of that kind of spray and pray approach of hoping to get as many people to see your content as possible, focusing on your core, focusing on the readers that really, really matter to you. One of the sort of exam questions today for the talk was how to become self-sustaining as well, and what a self-sustaining revenue model looks like. And what that means is basically not using borrowed traffic, not building your businesses on other people's platforms, on other people's algorithms, but thinking about how to do this yourself. And I thought this was a really nice little walkthrough of what that could look like. Starting with reader needs and editorial focus and brand and authority, moving on to the quality journalism piece, which is, as I said, where I think that is going to be this retreat to quality is a theme that is emerging at the moment. Providing relevance, reliability, frequency, and routine for people. We're going to talk about habits a little bit later. For you, thinking about your own channels, owned channels, homepages, the app, the newsletters, and alerts. In other words, your whole ecosystem, all of the things that you do to bring people back to your own content. And then things like looking at your data and insights, understanding what you have on people, identity, consent, really, really important as well. Again, something I think we haven't really thought about a lot, but having people's consent to market to them or to come back to them is incredibly important. And then also understanding preferences and behaviors as part of that. And that leads you to a situation where you're able to personalize, you're able to segment your audiences, you're able to give them distinctive pricing, the packaging that you give them, and the whole life cycle of that content can actually be put together in better products and access models for your readers. I've got one or two slides coming up on dynamic paywalls for this reason as well. In turn, that leads to diversified revenue, and if your revenue is diversified and you've got lots of irons in the fire, the flywheel leads you back to the beginning again, where you're able to reinvest in quality journalism, and so it goes. The opposite of this is short-term cost cutting to try and bring costs down, immediately taking resource out of your editorial teams, your product becomes weaker, the whole proposition becomes weaker, nobody wants to buy it, people start canceling, you get less revenue, you can't reinvest. And that doom loop is very common. It's a very common scenario in this environment as well. So, that continued reinvestment in quality journalism is really does matter. It really does matter. So how do we grow audience relationships and overcome some of these common challenges? The the three main things really are around collecting and analyzing user data, building direct relationships, as I said, and also changing our approach to discovery. So I've got a couple of slides later on SEO. And the questions that we're asking are, who are our audiences, what do they need, and how valuable are they to us, and that's the data collection piece. And then how do we create those direct and replicable relationships, and also how do we reach audiences, particularly as search becomes disrupted in the way that it is. So back to those 4 questions, when we're thinking about who are our audiences, what that does is move, if you try and unmask or de-anonymize your users as much as possible, that moves your users from anonymous to registered, and that's really important. I did a talk in Marseille last week, and I did say this, so for those of you who heard me, I'm going to repeat it again. Publishers are unbelievably reluctant to ask people to register for their content, and I mean, I still don't understand this really, because it is a value exchange, and even if you're not running a paywall but asking for registration, I think that's a perfectly fair value exchange. I mean, it's everything that you do on the internet now really requires you to create an account of some sort. It requires you to be logged in. It requires you to give some kind of data, if not your credit card details, at least to create an account. And I think that's the very least you can ask of your readers. It's expensive to run newsrooms. It costs a huge amount of money. You're asking somebody to take 2 minutes to create a registration or to create an account with you. I think that's a very fair value exchange, but people are terrified because of putting up barriers and somehow preventing traffic. And actually the long-term trade-off for that quick bit of traffic, or the long-term trade-off of having a logged-in user is, it's incomparable, really, over time. So, I think that's vitally important. Understanding what your audience needs helps you to shape your content and your formats and think about your products and propositions. So that filters through the whole life cycle of products, how they behave, their engagement, propensity to return or convert or to do something new with you, and how valuable are they, which really, in our case, for example, at the FT, we think a lot about customer lifetime value. That's one of our primary metrics. But what is that customer worth to you over time, and what can you do to keep them in your environment? This is quite a big chunk of stuff, but it just gives you an idea of some of the things you could be asking for with regard to audiences. So the routine personal data for who are our audiences, so name, age, gender, consent, again, incredibly important at this point, because having registered or logged in users but not getting them to consent to being marketed to or messaged is a bit of a miss. If you can get consent, first prize at that point. We collect a lot of job-related data because there's a lot you can infer from job-related data, and that's considered to be it doesn't feel very personal, so people are generally happy to do that for you. And then generally less often collected would be things like marital status and education, but I mean, frankly, you can ask for anything you like. You might as well give it a crack and see what people give you. And then also, what do they need? Content needs and interests, so you want to understand people's reasons for visiting, what they like, what it is that they want to see. And this has really been a big tripping up point, I think, for publishers over the years as well. But our idea of personalization has always been, tell me what you want to see on my website, and then I'll filter just that content to you. And we've had so many failed personalization attempts over the years because we don't have enough content to personalize to that degree. That's the truth of the matter. I mean, your content becomes incredibly thin when people only want to see 2 or 3 different subjects. You can't keep up with the volume on that. So that has been problematic. When we think about personalization, we're thinking more about really targeted, recommended reads, pushing people into content that they may enjoy, and that is run and driven very, very well by the kind of data that you can collect on them. And then also, obviously, looking at their behavior, recency, frequency, volume, what they've done on the site while they've been there. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I mean, again, it's just methods for collecting data and thinking about what to do with it once you've got it. So the next step after getting that data is to think about building segments, thinking about signals on your audience, and any decisions that can lead to greater revenue opportunities. I don't know how well you can see this because it looks a bit small, but you're very welcome to take the slides and have a look at them afterwards. The flow here is about collecting that data, identifying patterns, building segments with the data, and then using that to help guide your decisions. One of the really good use cases for this, which I spoke about last week, was thinking about paywalls, for example, and using those segments to target your paywalls in a much more flexible way. And again, this is a possibility that is being driven by AI and machine learning. So in this case, you can see a sort of a workflow for a dynamic paywall, gathering all of the inputs, all of the data inputs, building a score on readers, adding your guardrails, so for example, your editorial rules or your paid content rules or whatever it is that you want on your paywall, deciding what the reader sees, and then deciding what the next best action is going to be. And while we were doing a lot of this manually in the past, there is now such good tech on the market that this can all be done flexibly and in a dynamic way. So what you can enable with AI is to be able to send the right the targeted offer to the right person at the right time, and all of that is going to be based on the segments that have been created out of your machine learning. We've just implemented a dynamic paywall at the FT. The results have been fantastic. We've got about 120% increase in customers moving through the paywall. So the rates of movement through the paywall. So it's working incredibly well because people are getting very targeted offers at the right time in their journey, rather than it being very static. And then the other thing that AI is also enabling for us, and these are the positive things around that, is thinking about being able to cluster segments of readers together and also developing synthetic personas. And I think this is going to be really interesting. We don't really need to go and do huge, big marketing surveys anymore to build personas out of the information that we have on people. And the process flow here, again, is getting user data, doing behavioral clustering, but then the cluster segments and synthetic personas can be entirely machine built. And what that helps is with your messaging, your offer design, all of your marketing, and those kind of things. And the decision areas where understanding more about your readers works the most is across content, obviously, because it's going to help you to personalize or to think about what content to serve to people. So what do you commission? When do you publish it? What kind of commissioning do you do? What formats do you use? The second is around product, and of course this is a massive, all of your customer-facing product. What features should you be building, and what are your audience telling you, or what are your clusters and segments telling you around how to personalize and do the best for them on that basis? Again, on access and pricing, who sees the registration? When do they see it? At what point in the journey do they see it? And finally, the life cycle and retention piece. Again, how do you bring people back and get them to be retained? All of that should be entirely data-driven and not sort of being decided by a person. There are a couple of things, obviously, to bear in mind when it comes to running reader revenue, reader-centric businesses, is finding out what stakeholders care about and they don't care about. So definitely that the company and the audience values align, very important. Picking the right moments to ask for data collections, it's got to be very sort of natural in the flow. We see you enjoyed that story. Maybe you could tell us a bit more about what it is, what else you enjoy, for example. So very contextual messaging from that perspective. Making your data really easy to understand. This is inside the company. And making life easy for the team and the audience as much as possible. So you don't, doing things like extracting data from people, it has to be a very seamless process and not very onerous if possible. You've got to keep on iterating around this, and also, very importantly, facilitate conversations with loyal users. I mean, I remember hearing a gentleman speak from, I think it was the South China Morning Post, probably about 5 years ago. And he said something that really stuck with me, which is that about 50% of their marketing budget at the time was actually going on reader conversations, so actually talking to readers, bringing them in for focus groups, having discussions with them about what it is what they liked and everything. I was absolutely astonished. I couldn't believe it. but it was a really key pillar to their growth, constantly in contact with the reader to ask what it is that they were doing, what they liked about something, product testing, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we don't do enough of that, quite frankly. I really just don't think I don't think that's an established practice, and it's a very good practice. Right, I only have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to go quite quickly through this. I mean, the next step in this process is to create habit with readers as much as possible. And a couple of examples here from the FT. Building relationships and creating habit are incredibly important. So showing people's faces. Even The Economist has started actually showing their people now, which is really breaking from tradition, because The Economist hasn't even had bylines for years and years and years. So now we've actually got people, their faces showing, they're on video, you can see them on Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. So building personalities out of your newsroom and letting them go and lead with that, I think is really important, and an important thing to do. Our research that we've done with younger audiences also shows that the way they build trust with you is to see people and hear them and understand who they are as a person. They're not interested in just a byline. They actually want to know who's writing this and why should I trust them. And habits form through particular features that you run on your site. I don't need to go into a lot of detail about this, but things like podcasts have been a real blessing for us because they do create habit, return behaviors. People want to come back and engage over and over again. Newsletters have been an unbelievable boost for engagement and habitual use, and are still going strong. I mean, unbelievably, even in this age of AI, the newsletter is still rocking it out there, which is amazing. Apps and push notifications, your apps are amazingly important. I mean, I know at the FT, our app users are the most highly engaged by a long distance of all of our users. So we try as quickly as possible to get people into the apps because that's where they have the highest engagement. And then things like games and puzzles. And again, this is a highly habit-forming activity. So much so that I have heard people wonder if actually, the reason for buying newspapers in the past hasn't really been more about crosswords and that type of thing than it has been about the news itself. And anybody who does the Times crossword every day or the Telegraph crossword or whatever would really be able to relate to that. But this can be done online. None of this is dead. It's still very much alive. The New York Times is selling more subscriptions to their gaming products now than they are to their news products. It's actually overtaken in terms of subscriptions. And then, that trust and affinity with audiences also grow with expertise and transparency and people and recognizable voices and participation. And again, this is a really uncomfortable place for a lot of news publishers. Not something we're used to. It's not something that we've done very comfortably over time, but actually, going into the comments, engaging with people in the comments, talking to readers, being present with readers is actually a very valuable business proposition. So, it's definitely worth focusing on. There's a little stat there as well. I mean, our active commenters are about 46% more engaged than the average. We have a saying at the FT, come to the FT for the news and stay for the comments, because the comments actually drive a huge amount of engagement. And I know many publishers are really benefiting from that as well. Right, I'm going to fly through this a little bit just to get to the traditional search piece. Publishers needing to rethink discovery and think about what this funnel looks like. Sorry, these slides aren't very clear at all. But thinking about the traditional funnel, which is really more about how well content ranks on traditional search engines and how often people click the links through to get to other to your websites, and how that traffic turns into value for the business. This is the way that search was in the past. And the new AI search funnel is definitely changing things. A lot of this is still very similar. A lot of the basic rules of SEO still very much applying. But also, how do you become visible across the citations in AI overviews, for example? And that is, from what we can understand, being generated a lot by authority scores. What kind of content are you writing that is very authoritative? If you're publishing a lot of junk into the market every single day, your authority scores will go down. If you're going to get picked up by an AI and cited in an AI overview, it's because you've got higher authority on a subject or many subjects or whatever the case is. So, how often people who see the links click through and ultimately engaged with the content, that should say on site, and thinking about how that traffic turns into value for the business as well. So I'll just close with this, this quote from the Reuters Institute, which says, beyond deal making and lawsuits, there will be a focus this year on better understanding how content is being used by chatbots, by overview boxes, and other answer engines. This is a really big question. It's partly to track brand visibility, but also to enable content to be optimized for new systems. Expect to see more digital marketing agencies repurposing their services to include AEO and GEO, so generative engine optimization, as well as new specialist consultancies and analytics systems emerging. So, I know ARC is a great example of this, but how your content is structured, how it's put together, and how retrievable it is by bots is a really big concern for the future. And, not having good metadata, not having good structured content is going to be incredibly problematic, because the future scenarios that we see are that your customer is not going to be a B2C customer, but it's going to be a business to bot kind of transaction. So we expect in time that agents will be coming to fetch the content and not actually humans. And if an agent comes and fetches the content, it needs to be in good order, and it needs to be good enough order for them to be able to retrieve that content, hopefully to pay for it at the same time. And that's the next phase that we're seeing. So thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry that was a bit of a quick run through, but we are very happy to talk. I should be around for the better part of the day, so I'd love to meet you if I haven't met you already. And thank you for listening. Appreciate it.